You are changing. And the people around you can feel it before you can name it. Something in your voice has shifted. Something behind your eyes has gone still. You have not raised your fist. You have not raised your voice. But the room has started to rearrange itself around you, and you did not ask it to. This is not confidence. Confidence is what they sell you in weekend seminars. This is something older, something colder, something that Machiavelli understood 5 centuries ago when he sat in exile and wrote the most dangerous book in Western history. He did not write it for the loud. He did not write it for the aggressive. He wrote it for the man who was learning to become silent and discovering that silence is the sharpest weapon in any room. If you are watching this, something inside you is dying, and something far more dangerous is taking its place. Most men are harmless, not because they chose peace, but because they never learned they had a choice. They were shaped by systems that reward compliance, schools that punish deviation, families that confuse obedience with love, cultures that tell men their highest calling is to be useful, agreeable, and invisible. The harmless man does not walk into a room. He enters it apologetically. He speaks with upward inflection, turning statements into questions. He smiles when he is angry. He agrees when he disagrees. He has been trained, not educated, trained, to believe that his worth is measured by how little trouble he causes. Machiavelli saw this 500 years ago. He watched the princes of Italy lose their kingdoms, not to stronger armies, but to their own inability to make hard decisions. They wanted to be loved. They wanted to be seen as virtuous. And that desire, that desperate, bottomless hunger for approval, was the crack through which every enemy entered. He wrote a single line that has echoed through centuries. A man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. This is not cynicism. This is a clinical observation about human nature. The man who refuses to develop his capacity for danger does not become good. He becomes prey. But here is what most people never understand about dangerous men. They are not born. They are forged. And the forge is always the same. Betrayal. Not the dramatic betrayal of novels and cinema. The quiet kind. The kind that accumulates over years until one morning you wake up and realize you have been living inside a lie. The friend who smiled to your face and dismantled your reputation behind your back. The partner who took your devotion and spent it like currency on someone else. The parent who confused control with care and called it love. The employer who extracted your best years and discarded you the moment the number shifted. You gave loyalty. You received indifference. You gave trust. You received calculation. And the equation never balanced, because it was never designed to balance. It was designed to extract. Machiavelli understood this mechanism because he lived it. He served the Florentine Republic with total dedication. He built their militia. He ran their diplomacy. And when the Medici returned to power in 1512, they did not reward him. They arrested him. They tortured him. They hung him by his wrists from a ceiling and dislocated his shoulders. And what did Machiavelli do with that betrayal? He did not collapse. He did not seek revenge through violence. He went home to his small farm, put on his finest robes each evening, and sat down to write the most psychologically precise manual on power ever created. The wound was the catalyst. The betrayal was the education. The pain was the raw material from which he built a new understanding of human nature, one stripped of illusion, stripped of sentimentality, stripped of every comfortable lie that had kept him vulnerable. This is the root cause of every dangerous transformation. It is not ambition. It is not ego. It is the moment when a man's model of the world, the model that says be good and good things will happen, shatters against reality. And in that shattering, something new becomes possible. The harmless man operates on a flawed map. He believes the world rewards virtue automatically. The dangerous man has had that map torn from his hands. He has been forced to navigate by the stars, by what is actually there, not what he was told should be there. There is a question I want you to sit with for a moment. Think about the specific betrayal, the one that changed you, not the loudest one, the one that was quietest, the one where you kept smiling even after you understood what had been done to you, the one that taught you in a single moment that the rules you had been following were never real. Tell me in the comments, what was that moment for you? You do not need to explain the whole story. Just name it, one sentence, one line. Because here is what happens when you name it. You stop carrying it as a wound, and you start carrying it as a weapon. That is the difference between a man who was broken by his past and a man who was built by it. And if this is the kind of thinking you want to keep doing, subscribe. What comes next goes deeper into the architecture of power that Machiavelli spent his exile mapping. There is more of this waiting. Now that you understand the root, the wound that opens the door, let us look at how this transformation actually manifests. Because it does not arrive all at once. It arrives in signs, quiet ones, the kind only you notice at first. The first sign is the death of your automatic yes. For years, you have been a yes machine. Not because you wanted to help, but because you were terrified of the silence that follows a no. You said yes to projects that drained you. You said yes to people who diminished you. You said yes to invitations you dreaded, relationships you had outgrown, and obligations that existed only because someone else decided you owed them. But something has shifted. Your no has become clean. It arrives without apology, without excuse, without the elaborate performance of regret you use to stage. Someone asks for your time and you say no. Not, I would love to, but I cannot. Just no. And you feel the weight of their surprise. You feel the room recalibrate. You feel them searching your face for guilt and finding none. This is what Machiavelli meant by strategic cruelty, not sadism, not malice. The willingness to make the decision that protects your sovereignty, even when that decision disappoints someone who expected you to remain compliant. The people around you will not celebrate this change. They will call it coldness. They will say you have changed. What they mean is, you have stopped being useful on their terms. The second sign is the arrival of the pause. Watch a reactive man. He is a marionette. Pull his string and he dances. Insult him and he erupts. Flatter him and he melts. He is governed entirely by external input. He has no internal center of gravity. But you are developing something different. Between the stimulus and your response, a gap has opened. A silence. A cold, clear space where you can observe your own emotions without being commanded by them. Someone raises their voice at you. Your pulse stays even. Someone tries to provoke you into an argument. You let their words land, and you choose not to pick them up. Machiavelli wrote about the fox and the lion. The lion charges. The lion reacts. But the fox sees the trap before it springs. The fox does not bite the bait simply because the bait is there. You are becoming the fox, and this terrifies the people who relied on your reactivity. Because a man who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. A man who does not defend himself against insults has taken the insult's power and dissolved it. Your emotions have become data. When anger rises, you note it. You ask what it is telling you, but you do not let it drive. You do not hand the wheel to the feeling. You read the dashboard, and you choose your next move with precision. The third sign is the most disorienting. It is the death of your heroes. When you were younger, you looked up. You looked up to fathers, to mentors, to leaders, to the person you were in love with. You placed them above you. You gave them an authority they never earned, the authority of your projection. But now the pedestals are crumbling. You look at your father and you see not a god but a man who was improvising, a man who was afraid, a man who passed his unresolved pain directly into your nervous system. You look at the mentor and you see the sales funnel behind the wisdom. You look at the institution and you see the self-preservation mechanism underneath the mission statement. Machiavelli was despised in his time because he did this to politics itself. He looked at popes and princes and said, "These are not divine instruments. These are human animals pursuing power with the same hunger as any merchant or thief." He stripped the sacred from the powerful. And for that, they never forgave him. This is desacralization, and it is happening inside you now, not as cynicism, but as clarity. When you stop worshiping, you can finally negotiate. You can challenge. You can see the human behind the title, the fear behind the authority, the insecurity behind the aggression. You cannot outmaneuver a god, but you can outmaneuver a man. And you are beginning to see that every authority figure you ever feared was just a man, standing on a pedestal you built for him. The fourth sign is the one other people notice before you do. You have stopped broadcasting in a world where everyone is performing, posting their meals, their opinions, their grief, their victories. You have gone quiet, not because you have nothing to say, because you have realized that silence is a strategic asset. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." This is the principle of strategic opacity. The less people know about your inner world, the more power you retain over how they perceive you. You have stopped announcing your plans. You have stopped explaining your decisions. You have stopped using your pain as social currency. When you are building something, you build in silence. When you are hurting, you heal in private. When you win, you let the results speak. This silence does something to other people. It creates a vacuum, and human psychology cannot tolerate a vacuum. When you stop revealing yourself, people begin projecting onto you. They fill your silence with their own fears, their own assumptions, their own respect. In negotiation, the person who speaks least holds the most leverage. The person who talks is revealing cards. The person who listens is counting them. You are becoming an enigma. And an enigma is the most dangerous thing a man can become. Because an enigma cannot be predicted. And what cannot be predicted cannot be controlled. Now we arrive at the intellectual core, the framework that connects every sign into a single coherent structure. Because these are not random changes, they are stages of a specific psychological transformation that Machiavelli mapped with surgical precision. The framework is this: There are two kinds of power in the world: positional power and personal power. Positional power comes from titles, from money, from institutional authority. It is borrowed. It can be taken away with a single phone call, a single election, a single market crash. Personal power comes from within. It is the power of the man who has mastered his own psychology. It cannot be revoked because it was never granted by anyone else. It was built, brick by brick, wound by wound, silence by silence. Machiavelli understood that the most effective rulers were not the ones with the largest armies. They were the ones who understood the invisible architecture of human motivation: fear, loyalty, self-interest, vanity. These are the raw materials of influence. And the man who understands them does not need to shout. He simply arranges the room. This is what you are learning to do, not through manipulation in the petty sense, but through a deep, unflinching understanding of how people actually operate beneath their social masks. Most people believe that influence comes from charisma, from being likable, from being entertaining. This is the surface-level understanding. What is actually happening beneath every act of genuine influence is something far more structural. The dangerous man influences through three invisible mechanisms. First, competence so obvious it does not need to be stated. He does not tell you he is capable. You watch him operate and the conclusion forms itself in your mind. Second, emotional independence so complete that his approval becomes valuable precisely because it is rare. He does not give validation freely. And because he does not give it freely, when he does offer a word of genuine recognition, it lands like a thunderbolt. People orbit men like this not because they are pleasant, but because their attention means something. Third, predictability of principle, combined with unpredictability of action. The dangerous man has a code. You know what he stands for, but you never quite know what he will do next. This combination, moral clarity with tactical mystery, is the essence of what Machiavelli called virtue. Not virtue in the soft, obedient sense. Virtue in the ancient sense. The raw capacity to act effectively in a world that does not care about your feelings. The harmless man is predictable in every dimension. You know what he thinks, what he feels, what he will do. He has no leverage because he has no mystery. The dangerous man is a closed system. He reveals only what serves his purpose. He acts only when the moment is precisely right. And when he acts, the impact is disproportionate because no one saw it coming. This is not about being cold. This is about being sovereign. A sovereign does not explain his reasoning to every passerby. A sovereign makes the decision, accepts the consequence, and moves forward without apology. You are building this architecture inside yourself right now. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you are laying a brick. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you are reinforcing the foundation. Every time you refuse to be moved by someone else's emotional manipulation, you are raising the walls of a fortress that no external force can breach. Here is where the transformation pivots from intellectual understanding to something far more visceral. This is the turn, the moment you must confront the cost. Because everything I have described, the silence, the emotional control, the collapsed pedestals, the strategic precision, all of it comes with a price that most men refuse to pay. The price is loneliness. Not the loneliness of having no one around you. The loneliness of being surrounded by people who can no longer reach you. When you stop being reactive, people stop feeling connected to you. When you stop seeking approval, people stop feeling needed by you. When you see through the masks, people sense that their performance no longer works, and they withdraw. Not because they dislike you, because you make them uncomfortable. You are a mirror they did not ask for. Machiavelli lived this isolation for the last 14 years of his life. He wrote the most brilliant political treatise in history, and no one in power would listen. He sent the prince to the Medici as a gift, practically begging for a position. They ignored him. The man who understood power better than anyone was denied access to it. And yet he kept writing. He kept thinking. He kept refining his understanding. Because the transformation was never about the external reward. It was about becoming the kind of man who sees clearly, even when clarity brings no comfort. If something in that image speaks to you, if you recognize the weight of seeing more than others while carrying that sight alone, a like puts this in front of someone else who is walking the same path right now. This is the reframe you need to understand. The loneliness is not the flaw in the transformation. It is the transformation. The willingness to stand apart, to hold your ground when every social instinct screams at you to conform, to soften, to go back to being harmless. That willingness is the very thing that makes you dangerous, not dangerous to others, dangerous to the systems of control that depend on your compliance, dangerous to the manipulators who depend on your reactivity, dangerous to the mediocrity that depends on your fear of standing out. You are not becoming cruel. You are becoming ungovernable. And the world has no category for a man it cannot govern. So it calls him cold. It calls him distant. It calls him changed. Let them call you whatever they need to call you. The man who needs to be understood by everyone will be controlled by anyone. Understanding is not enough. Machiavelli did not write The Prince as philosophy. He wrote it as a manual, and a manual demands practice. The first practice is what I call the evening audit. Each night before sleep, you sit with 3 questions, not on paper, in your mind, in silence. The first question: where did I react today instead of respond? Reaction is automatic. Response is chosen. Identify the moment when someone pulled your string and you danced. Do not judge it. Do not punish yourself for it. Simply see it. Name the trigger. Name the emotion. Name what you did. And then ask, what would the fox have done? The second question: where did I seek approval today that I did not need? This one cuts deep, because approval seeking is invisible to the person doing it. It hides inside jokes you told to be liked, inside opinions you softened to avoid conflict, inside compliments you gave not from genuine admiration, but from a desperate need to be received warmly. Find one instance, just one, and sit with the discomfort of recognizing it. The third question: what did I reveal today that I should have kept? Information is power. Every time you overshare your plans, your wounds, your strategies, you hand someone a lever they can use against you. Find one moment where you spoke, when silence would have served you better, not to become secretive, to become intentional about what you give the world access to. This practice takes 5 minutes. It costs nothing. And over weeks and months, it rewires the fundamental architecture of how you move through the world. The second practice targets the root cause directly, the addiction to comfort that keeps most men harmless. Once per day, deliberately choose the harder path, not the dramatic, performative hard path, the small invisible one. The conversation you have been avoiding, have it today. The boundary you have been too afraid to set it today. The truth you have been softening, speak it plainly. Machiavelli observed that the princes who fell were not defeated by stronger enemies. They were defeated by their own avoidance. They delayed the difficult decision until the difficult decision became impossible. They chose comfort today and paid for it with catastrophe tomorrow. Your daily discomfort protocol is the antidote. It trains your nervous system to associate difficulty with growth rather than danger. Over time, the hard conversation stops feeling like a threat. It starts feeling like maintenance. The necessary work of a man who refuses to let comfort erode his capacity. The third practice is the one that separates the truly dangerous man from the merely cold one. It is strategic generosity. Machiavelli is misread as a champion of pure self-interest. But read The Prince carefully, and you find something more nuanced. The most effective ruler is not the one who takes everything. He is the one who gives, but gives with precision. The dangerous man is generous, but his generosity is never random. He gives his time to those who have earned it through their own integrity. He gives his knowledge to those who will act on it. He gives his loyalty to those who have demonstrated, through behavior, not words, that they deserve it. This is not transactional coldness. This is the opposite of the harmless man's indiscriminate giving, which is really just a disguised bid for approval. Strategic generosity means your gifts carry weight. When you help someone, it means something, because you do not help everyone. When you speak well of someone, it means something, because you do not flatter. The practice is this. Each week, identify one person who deserves your investment, not the person who asks the loudest, the person who has demonstrated through action that they are building something real. Give them your attention. Give them your insight. Give them the thing the harmless man spreads thin across everyone. Your genuine care, concentrated and intentional. This is how you close the circle. The dangerous man is not a fortress sealed against the world. He is a fortress with a gate. And he chooses with great deliberation who enters. And now you see it. The full arc. The full architecture of the shift that has been building inside you. You began as the man who walked into rooms and changed nothing. The man whose anger made people laugh. The man who set himself on fire to keep others warm and called it virtue. But the wound came. The betrayal. The moment the map tore. And in that tearing, something ancient woke up. Something Machiavelli spent his exile trying to put into words. The understanding that the world does not reward goodness automatically. That safety is not a gift. It is a capacity you build inside yourself. That the most dangerous thing you can become is a man who no longer needs the world to tell him who he is. You are not becoming cruel. You are becoming complete. You are integrating the parts of yourself that you were taught to hide, the strategic mind, the cold clarity, the willingness to stand alone. These were never flaws. They were survival instruments that you buried because someone told you they were shameful. Machiavelli's final lesson is the one most people miss entirely. He did not write The Prince to celebrate cruelty. He wrote it to arm the man of conscience with the tools of the world as it actually is. Because a good man who cannot protect himself is not good. He is merely harmless. And harmlessness in a world that does not return your kindness is not a virtue. It is an invitation to be consumed. If you want to continue this work, subscribe. Every video on this channel is built for the man who is done performing harmlessness and ready to engage with the deeper architecture of power, psychology, and self-mastery. What comes next goes further. The signs we map today are the surface layer. Beneath them lies an entire operating system that governs how you negotiate, how you lead, how you love, and how you protect the things that matter to you. That system is what we build together, piece by piece, every time you return. You were never meant to be harmless. You were meant to be dangerous and kind. Not kind because you are afraid, but kind because you are strong enough to choose it. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.